निताय गौर हरि बोल। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace Abhay Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotara Shatashri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी महारानी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari 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 Bol. Hare Krishna. Excuse me if I talk a bit slowly. I came down with a fever this morning, so not doing too well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Ananda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Nirṛtir Nama Paschadvas Taya Yati Purañjana Vaiśasam Nama Vishayam Lubdhakena Samanvitaha. Nirṛtir Nama Paschadvas Taya Yati Purañjana Vaiśasam Nama Vishayam Lubdhakena Samanvitaha. Nirṛtir Nama Paschadvas Taya Yati Purañjana Vaiśasam Nama Vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Nirṛtir paschadvas taya yati Purañjana. Vaiśasam nama vishayam Lubdhakena samanvitaha. Word by word translation. Nirṛti, of the name Nirṛti. Nama, called. Paschat, western. Dvaha, gate. Taya, by which. Yati, used to go. Purañjana, King Purañjana. Vaiśasam, of the name Vaiśasa. Nama, called. Vishayam, to the place. Lubdhakena, by the friend named Lubdhaka. Samanvitaha, accompanied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Another gate on the western side was known as Nirṛti. Purañjana used to go through this gate to the place known as Vaiśasa, accompanied by his friend Lubdhaka. Purport. This is a reference to the rectum. The rectum is supposed to be situated on the western side of the eyes, nose, and ears. This gate is specially meant for death. When an ordinary living entity abandons his present body, he passes through the rectum. It is therefore painful. When one is called by nature to evacuate, one also experiences pain. The friend of the living entity who accompanies him through this gate is named Lubdhaka, which means greed. Due to our greed, we eat unnecessarily, and such gluttony causes pain at the time of evacuation. The conclusion is that the living entity feels well if he evacuates properly. This gate is known as Nirṛti, or the painful gate. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarne Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Krishna Goswami Niti Namine Namo Hansanikasaya Prabhupada Priyayate Shuddhi Sutrada Nishtubhyam Tasya Vakyanavadana Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangam Langayate Giram Yat Kripataram Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Hare Krishna. So, thank you everyone for joining here today on the pious day of Ekadashi. Usually Friday is party day for people. I remember my dad used to come home and say, it's Friday today, which means it's a party vibe. But we party in a different way at the temple. So, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, Verse 53. In the Mahabharata, there is a very interesting pastime about Durvasa Muni and the Pandavas. This is around the time when Durvasa Muni visits the Pandavas during their Agyatvas time, or as we call it, exile. So Duryodhan counseled Durvasa Muni that please visit the Pandavas during their exile time, but you should visit with all of your disciples, 10,000 disciples, and you should visit them sometime around noon, so that by that time they'll be done with their morning duties and they'll be done with all of their obligations, so they can serve you and your disciples really well. But internally he knew that by the time it is noon, the Pandavas are done having their lunch, and Draupadi was gifted this magical container called Akshay Patra by the sun god. And the magical power that it had was, in one usage, it can supply unlimited amounts of food. And Duryodhan knew very well that once it has been used and washed off, it can only be used the next day. And if Durvasa Muni shows up with 10,000 disciples, and if the Pandavas have nothing to offer him, then it will be a very convenient situation for me. So as counseled by Durvasa Muni, as counseled by Duryodhan, Durvasa Muni visits the Pandavas, and Yudhishthir Maharaj and Draupadi Maharani, they are perplexed. What do we do now? So Yudhishthir Maharaj kept asking her, but this container is magical. It can supply unlimited amounts of food. And she said, no, but it can only be used once in a day. Now I can only reuse it tomorrow. Now, Durvasa Muni, he was doing Gayatri along with his disciples, and few moments before he came back. And at the right time, Krishna intervened. And he looked at the pot and he saw that there is one small grain of rice. So he picked up that grain of rice, put in his mouth and said, Ananta Vishayatma Sampannam. And the moment he said that, the entire universe became satisfied of their hunger. Even the disciples who were sitting outside, everyone started belching, including Durvasa Muni. People started rolling on the ground. What is this feeling of fullness that we are experiencing in our stomach? We haven't even done Achman yet. And interestingly, when they were belching, certain aromas of their favorite dishes was coming out of their mouth. He's like, I did not even have rasmalai. Where is this aroma of rasmalai coming from? So Durvasa Muni and his disciples, they became very pleased with the Pandavas. So as a consequence, Durvasa Muni said, I'll give a boon to each one of you. Individually. 5 Pandavas and Draupadi, 6 boons. Interesting. That too from Durvasa Muni. The sharp expert becomes boon expert now. So starting with Draupadi Maharani, then Yudhishthir Maharaj, coming to Bhimsen. Now Bhimsen asked for a very interesting boon. He told Durvasa Muni that, Maharaj, you can see I'm very humongous. So is my diet. My diet is also no less, it is unparalleled. I don't think anybody can eat as much as I can eat. I can eat for 6 hours straight. Yet, I don't feel a feeling of fullness. But the problem is that ultimately this body is made up of blood, mucus, stool and flesh. So the next morning, when I have to evacuate, it takes a very long time. I think practically I'm spending the same amount of time evacuating as compared to the amount that I'm eating. So I have one request. I shall eat unrestrictedly, and all of my stool should get transferred to the body of Shakuni. So in the morning when I have to do my business, rather Shakuni Mama should be given that service. And Durvasa Muni said, Tathastu. So for Bhim it was a boon indeed, because now he doesn't have to worry about toilet business. Eat as much as you want, get done within 5-10 minutes. Shakuni became perplexed. I had Ekadashi Prasadam yesterday. How come so much? And on certain days, when Bhim was extra merciful on Shakuni, he would mix 50-60 spoons of chili powder in water and drink it. And the next morning, Shakuni Mama, terrible, terrible, terrible morning. So sometimes one can have rectum issues because of some other person's sense gratification also, not just our own. So interestingly, we have covered all the 9 gates. I don't want to walk you through everything, but we've understood that Purañjana represents the living entity. The city is the body, and there are 9 gates in the city. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, and 2 hidden senses. And now we are at the last one, which is the rectum. Not a very interesting topic to talk about. And I think that if some outsider comes who's not very well aware of the temple's environment and what we discuss, he might feel, wow, what's absurd? They're talking about some rectum kind of thing, But interestingly, Bhagavatam and a lot of other scriptures, they do not hesitate to speak about the bodily functions. Because ultimately everything is connected to some sort of spiritual instruction. If we have anything given to us by Krishna, there is a significance to it. So nothing is out of the scope of spirituality. So in this, sorry, in this verse, we are introduced to this gate called Nirṛti, which is used for evacuation of bowels. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the living entity feels well if he evacuates the bowels properly, and any kind of imbalance or excess that we have in our eating, it obviously causes problems, not just with the bodily functions, but even on our consciousness. I mean, I've observed this thing when I tend to overeat. It might even be like noon time where you're still very rajasic, very active, but if you overeat around that time, you start feeling lethargic. And then obviously whatever problems you have to deal with in your intestine, that's something that comes later on. But the first impact that it has is on your consciousness. Even I was reading this very nice book called Obstacles on the Path of Bhakti by His Holiness Satswarup Das Goswami Maharaj. And there are various obstacles mentioned. One of them is illicit sex. So in that chapter, I'm not sure who wrote the letter to Srila Prabhupada, but he wrote to Srila Prabhupada saying that, Prabhupada, I'm feeling a lot of lustful desires in my heart. And the first question Srila Prabhupada asked him, how much are you eating? And are you evacuating properly? Because it is actually mentioned in Ayurveda that if your bowels are not evacuated properly, if you're not cleaning up your stool properly, then it actually poses a threat to celibacy, because energy will then find a different channel to express itself. So that's one thing which has a multifarious impact. So yeah, it does not just have impact on the bodily functions, but on the consciousness itself. Because when we are talking about waste elimination, that waste elimination is connected to something else too. I'm not sure if any one of you is aware of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster in the 1980s. Yeah. So during that time, in a city called, not like a city, but probably a small suburb or something, in Russia, Chernobyl, they had a nuclear power plant, and somewhere in the mid of March, that power plant, 5 nuclear reactors, they burst open in the middle of the night because of the carelessness of a stupid engineer. And it exposed God knows how much radiation in the atmosphere that place is still confined and nobody is allowed to go around that area. Now, interestingly, during that time, when just after the incident, the next day, when the scientists, they started noticing high amounts of radiation 400 kilometers away from Chernobyl, they started noticing, wow, why is there so much of radiation? They ran the tests through their equipment and in their laboratories, and their conclusion was, it can't be Chernobyl because it's 400 kilometers away. Later on, they found out what had happened there. So they understood that, okay, this radiation that we were seeing here, it's actually connected to what happened over there. Similarly, we talk about waste elimination, and we become the recipients of the suffering and misery of this waste elimination from our body. But the actual reason is because there is a lot of waste on the mirror of the heart, which we don't really think about it. That if I'm eating unnecessarily, if I'm gratifying my senses unnecessarily, and then I'm becoming the recipient of this suffering, right? But is it perhaps connected to something else? And we see that in most of the cases, It is connected to the contamination of your consciousness, which is causing you to behave in a certain way and then become the recipient of those miserable conditions. So, bodily waste, we know how to eliminate, right? But nobody really teaches us how to tackle the waste, which is a lot more stronger and a lot more rigid, and it is literally lingering on the mirror of the heart, not just since this lifetime, but since millions of lifetimes. It is a lot difficult to clean it, but in present society, no, that is actually nobody's concern. People can go to a dietitian, a nutritionist, to get counsel on how they can resolve their gastrointestinal problems, right? They can perhaps even start eating healthy, but ultimately, that is not going to save them from the miseries of afterlife, because what you're doing in this lifetime, it will determine what kind of gati or what kind of destination you will reach. So I know like a few people, they not like my relatives, but I like some of my friends. They've got problems like hemorrhoids, very painful problems. But if you look at their lifestyle, it is so unrestricted. Whatever they eat, and I know it is going to end in pain. They know it is going to end in pain, but they are just so unrestrictedly attached to that activity that they cannot overcome it, and then they have to suffer the reactions. So we should be very thankful that because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we not only know how to take care of our bodily functions. Did any one of you know that we are actually supposed to take a bath after evacuating? Okay, like I can see a few heads nodding in yes. I did not know this. I only thought that you're supposed to take bath once a day and that's it, and that constitutes as cleanliness. Yes, but how many people read the Hari Bhakti Vilas? That's the problem. So because of Prabhupada, because of the acharyas, we are not only getting to learn how to live a civilized life by eliminating the bodily wastes and come to the mode of goodness, but also transcend that mode of goodness by eliminating the waste on the heart, on the mirror of the heart, and then finally go towards that destination which we are always hankering for. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends in Chaitanya Charitamrita that for someone who has a lot of dirt accumulated on their heart, a very good way to get rid of it is to do mandir marjan, or cleaning of the temple. I'm sure you must have heard about the Gundicha Mandir Marjan Leela, in which Mahaprabhu realized that he has Nitya Siddha devotees, eternally liberated souls, but he also has associates who are still struggling with these wastes and dirts of anger, greed, lust. And it is not very easy to get rid of these wasteful attributes. This is why he recommended that we go and we clean the Gundicha Mandir. And it's quite interesting. If somebody would not clean the temple properly, Mahaprabhu would not go and chastise him. He would actually fall at his feet and say, "Wow, you're cleaning so nicely. Oh my God, you've accumulated so much of dirt." And the person would just drown in shame and embarrassment. So yeah, the acharyas, they know how to straighten us in a way that we not only keep ourselves clean, keep our environment clean, keep the temple clean, but also in the process clean ourselves internally. So Purañjana, until now we've seen how Purañjana is traveling from different places within the body. Sometimes he's going towards the ears, towards the eyes, and now he's going towards Nirṛti or Vaiśasa, the place of violence and misery. Similarly, we as living entities, our greed, Lubdhaka, constant companion, it is accompanying us everywhere. But we can take a moment to think that by going everywhere with this Lubdhaka, maybe we can take it somewhere with us. Instead of roaming everywhere around the world, maybe roam around the temple and clean the temple sometime. So some cleansing internally can also take place. So interestingly, the word Nirṛti, it carries different meanings. Things like destruction, decay, inauspiciousness, and prominently suffering. So why is this gate given such a name? Because the mention of Nirṛti comes quite often in Bhagavatam. There are other few verses where Nirṛti has also been mentioned. So it is actually, as we discussed, it is connected to the elimination of waste. But more importantly, when an ordinary conditioned soul, and the emphasis is on ordinary conditioned soul, finally abandons this body, they leave the body through this particular gate. Just the thought of that is very painful. I'm not even sure what it's like to go through that situation. So we actually see in various scriptures, in various accounts, that for a person, for a living entity which is engrossed, heavily engrossed in sense gratification, when they leave their body, they leave through the rectum. As for the jnanis and the yogis, so what they do is they try to perfect this one asana called Siddhasana, where they would put the heel of their left foot on the opening gate of the rectum. So they try to master it for years, so that finally when the day comes to leave the world, they try their best that their soul moves in upward direction and leaves through the head, also called the Brahmarandra. So they close the gate. And the devotees leave their body in a very similar fashion, although without any extraneous effort of Siddhasana or any kind of different asana. The only asana we need is asana at the lotus feet of Radha Gopinath and our beloved Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. And yogis, they, even to perfect Siddhasana, you need a lot of auxiliary exercises and auxiliary breathing techniques, because your breathing impacts how flexible, your breathing and asana combined, they impact how flexible your body will become. But thankfully for us, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has only recommended one auxiliary activity. That is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's it. That's all we need. That's the only requirement. Even if somebody wants to achieve that kind of liberation, that okay, I want to exit through the Brahmarandra, I want to exit in a very glorious way. Okay, well, Krishna is very accommodating. Akama sarva kamova, moksha kamo daradhi. So whatever desires you have, they can be facilitated very easily if you just take to Krishna consciousness. So the word Vaiśasa, it is also mentioned in the translation. It refers to a place of pain and violence. Even the act of evacuation, as we've all experienced, it can be very painful if it's driven by imbalance and excess. Actually, we've all been in that situation, especially during festivals time. You know, like I remember going through a similar situation during Nityanand Trayodashi. Because see, like the prasadam is so good, you can't have any less of it. And I'm not even talking about festival time. even when generally I come to the temple in the evening, like even if they've got something as simple as chole chawal or kheer, you could have a lot of it. I mean, I remember this incident. I mean, Ayush Prabhu would remember because he was with us during the Hazelbrook, uh, what do we call it? Retreat. Yes, thank you. So I remember we kept doing kirtan until 8:30, 8:45, and then 9 p.m. pesto sauce pasta, cheese loaded pesto sauce pasta. Oh my God, so tempting. But it was 9 p.m. So at like until 8:30, 8:45, everybody was doing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, listening to Prasanna Prabhu's beautiful flute. That episode went on for another 15 minutes because he was playing so beautifully. And then Mathura Gokul Mataji says, "Okay, prasadam is ready." And I was like, "Okay." I was wondering maybe this is the prasadam for tonight. You know, the kirtan. Like, it's 9 p.m. And then Mataji's like, "We have pesto sauce pasta." And everybody's eyes, they glittered. Like, yes, pesto sauce, including myself. See, just because I'm giving lecture here, it does not mean I'm on any different platform. This is like a rehabilitation class for me. Yeah. Yeah. So I had like huge quantities. Like I remember me and Achyut Keshav, no, Achyut Keshava Prabhu. Keshav Achyuta or Achyut Keshav Prabhu. We ate like huge quantities. And me, Achyut Keshav Prabhu, and then there was Varun Prabhu, I think. And the next morning, Ghanshyam Prabhu said, "Okay, so tomorrow morning, everybody wake up around 5:30." And by the time it was 4:45, I opened my eyes and I was like, "Oh!" Yeah, and I looked at Achyut Keshav Prabhu. He's like, "I'm regretting it. I'm regretting it." And everybody, at least in my room, like I'm describing the situation of my room, every one of us, we were regretting it. Because if certain bodily functions, because they have certain timeline, if they're not executed at the right time, then they can create havoc all throughout the day. And like it was a very challenging day after that because then you have to chant japa. You're not able to focus because you're half asleep. You're like we like obviously after having that much pesto pasta at 9 p.m. you can't just fall asleep right away, right? I think 9 p.m. is like the standard sleeping time in temple. So yeah, the living entity it becomes the recipient of suffering not because of anyone else but because of its own activities. Now, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the friend, Lubdhaka, or greed, it is accompanying the living entity, Purañjana, and it is taking it to various places. Now we need to understand that whatever kind of endeavor we make, it is always accompanied by some form of desire or greed. There is nothing that you would do in your life which is not driven by something. It can either be positive, it can either be very negative, or it can either be neutral. But there is always some desire accompanying it. Like Bhagavad Gita says, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhyam tishtanti rajasa, jagannasya gunavrittistha, adho gachanti tamasa. So when we are driven by this desire to enjoy senses, especially when they are in the mode of ignorance, then we are going downwards towards the lower regions of the body. Interestingly, the body is also designed in the template of the universe. Like on the top, we've got specialized regions like the brain, the eyes. Then in the middle, we've got some impulsive regions like the stomach. And then the lower regions, the genitals, the rectum, full of ignorance. Nobody wants to discuss all these things. But interestingly, the living entity, it is rarely accompanied by its greed towards the upper regions. So the upper region is where the heart is located, where Krishna is. But we rarely get that greed. Our greed is revolving, making us revolve either within the middle regions, like the stomach, the intestines, or within the lower regions, the genitals or the rectum. So we need to try to inculcate spiritual greed, which can slowly uplift us from these lower regions to the upper regions and finally re-establish that connection with Krishna. And to do that, we have to identify the real enemy, which is not the rectum, not the stomach, not the heart, not even the mind, but rather the first opening of our body, which is the mouth. And in that mouth, the smallest muscle in the body, the tongue. Interestingly, in Krishna consciousness and in other spiritual sects, people always are focusing on control the mind, control the mind, control the mind. But thankfully, acharyas describe how even before controlling the mind, we should start by controlling the tongue. Because the tongue has a direct impact on the mind. This is why in Krishna consciousness, there is an emphasis on a lot of things. You should read Shastras, do deity worship, associate with devotees. But the first and foremost thing, especially when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was not taught how to use my hands. I was not taught how to use my eyes. I was not even taught how to use my ears. I was taught how to use my tongue. This is the fundamental, foundational understanding of any spiritual community, that what you eat and what you speak has a very grave impact on your mind. Similarly, what you eat has a very grave impact on your stomach. And the stomach is very discriminate in the fact that it can only accept certain kinds of foods. You cannot put stones inside the stomach and still expect them to get digested. But the tongue is very unrestricted. You can put whatever you want in it. It can speak whatever it wants. So it needs to be restricted very, very consciously. So the real enemy here is not the greed, but actually, where is that greed arising from? That greed is arising from what we put in our body. There's actually a very small Sanskrit line called rasanyam jite vishwam jite, which means one who can conquer the tongue, he can actually conquer the world, because everything is interconnected, and the tongue is like the epicenter. It's like the government of a country. A country might be very huge, like India. India is a huge country, right? But even if a change has to be made in Kerala or let's say Arunachal Pradesh, which are still very far from the New Delhi region, but because that's where the government sits, they can replicate their decision in very far land. Similarly, the tongue is not present everywhere in the body, but whatever the tongue exhibits, it can be seen in various forms in the body, in forms of disease, in forms of misery, in forms of happiness too. So that's what we have to keep a check on. Interestingly, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, when he had just come into Krishna consciousness, and he was given the task of cleaning Srila Prabhupada's room. So Prabhupada, one day he came to Mayapur, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj was still very young, not even initiated. And he used to go to Kolkata to do some service and bring some foodstuffs. So he asked Prabhupada that, sometimes when I go to Kolkata, I tend to go to the sweet shops and have some sweets. I know they're not offered, but I don't know, like my mind is a bit uncontrolled. Initially, Prabhupada said that it's okay. Everything is made by Krishna. The sweets are fine. You don't need to feel any kind of guilt for that. It's all right. So that was a form of encouragement. But when Bhakti Charu Maharaj emphasized, then Srila Prabhupada said that there's only two ways you can control the tongue: chant Hare Krishna and accept only Krishna Prasadam. But terms and conditions apply. Krishna Prasadam in limited quantities. Of course, initially it doesn't matter, because for a well which has been which has not seen any water since eternity, you can overfill that well with tons of water and still everything will be all right. Similarly, a person who has been wandering all throughout the universe looking for happiness, you can feed him loads of prasadam initially and everything will be all right. But after a while, the principles of yuktahara viharasya, they start coming in handy, not just in spiritual life, but even in material life. Even the people who are materially successful, they are very moderate in their eating and sleeping. Because they know that whatever kind of activity the opening of my body is performing, it will automatically reflect in other parts. But sadly, even those people don't know how to conquer the real enemy, which is greed, which is accompanying them all the time. This is why Krishna consciousness is so wonderful, because you can spiritualize your greed. Greed is in general seen as a very negative connotation. That, oh, that person is so greedy. But if you can spiritualize that greed, and that can only happen if you take up to bhakti. Jnanis, yogis and karmis, well, not karmis really, they still have a lot of greed. The jnanis and yogis, they have to absolutely get rid of these things if they want to attain that Brahman destination. But Krishna consciousness does not have any of these expectations. You just need to stay in the periphery of devotees, and all of these negative connotations, they will be spiritualized. It's like, you can imagine your anger, greed, lust, they're now putting on tilak and chanting Hare Krishna. That's actually a very good visual. You know, like we can probably make a film out of it. Anger, greed, lust, they have horns and like red face. And then after coming in devotees, anger, greed and lust, they are chanting Hare Krishna. Maybe anger gets initiated name, Anant Das. So, like Dhruv Maharaj, for example, he was also driven by greed. The greed to avenge my insult. The greed to get a higher planet than my grandfather, Lord Brahma. We can see it as a determination of a Kshatriya, but predominantly it's greed. But when Lord Vishnu appeared before him, and Lord Vishnu asked him that, what is your desire? I finally come. Dhruva Maharaj very beautifully says, Sthana vilashi tapasi sthitoham. I was situated on this place to gain something. Tvam praptvan deva munindra guhyam. But now I have attained you, and you are rare to attain even for the greatest of demigods and sages. Kacham vichinvan api divya ratnam. I was in search of broken pieces of glass, but I found true diamond. Swamin kritarthosmi varam nayache. And now, my Lord, I have no greed left, because I am fully satisfied. So the only way to get rid of greed or any kind of negative connotations, negative attributes that we have, is to simply engage ourselves in service and association. That's the only way possible. People will talk about various methods, various, there are programs going on, and they serve no purpose. Because if you can't get rid of the contamination on your heart, then simply doing some breathing exercises to calm down the mind for some transient moments will not suffice. So with this, I'd like to conclude my lecture. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि 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 बोल। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। No, Prabhuji. They've got spiritual bodies. It's us who have the bodies made out of blood, mucus, and flesh, stool. But when you get the spiritual body, which is Sachidanand, then the composition is not like ours. So no, no. Yes, Prabhuji. Hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Sorry, Prabhu. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's actually a very good question, Prabhu, because sometimes we can feel like we are engrossed with this intense greed to serve, but we might be being a little unfair to other devotees, might even end up offending someone. So, a very good way to circumvent that situation is to stick to the services which have been allotted to you. Like this is something which I try to keep in mind, that okay, if this so and so service has been given to me, I should try to do it to the best of my ability. If otherwise asked by any senior Vaishnava, then I shall move on to some extended services, because there's always a risk of becoming a bit puffed up. Okay, I'm doing so many services, and you can still misinterpret it as greed. So, for example, my service is to come to the temple and serve the Vaishnavas by discussing something from Bhagavatam, right? So, I'll try to do this for as long as I can, and try to do it to the best of my ability, without thinking how I can hog on other slots as well, or try to get that weekend slot just because it's convenient for me, right? So, and if we continue doing our prescribed services properly, then one day that transcendental grade arises within us, and it arises in such a way that we end up making the best use of it without offending other devotees, or without being unfair to anyone. Like Gaurang Prabhu from Chapati Temple, he's an IITian. That's a very big deal. From people coming from India, they know what kind of a big deal it is. And for the first 10-15 years, his service at the Chapati Temple was to cook chapatis. That's all he was doing. Now he was sharing how initially a preacher, not a preacher actually, a wannabe preacher, he came to the temple and he got assigned kitchen duty. So every day he would crib, "You guys are not recognizing my potential. I'm a great speaker. I can do such good service. You have put me in kitchen duty." And Gaurang Prabhu used to be like, "It's okay. Don't worry. You have this desire, but try to do what you're doing right now in a good way, right? And eventually something or the other will happen." After a week or so, that person left the temple and said, "You guys are all fools. You are not recognizing my potential. I'm just wasting my life here. I've not come here to become a chef. I've come here to become a preacher. I want to take Prabhupada's movement to the next level by leaving the movement, apparently." After he left, after 10 years, he came back to Chowpatty with his family. Gaurang Prabhu, by that time, he had become a preacher. So Gaurang Prabhu asked him that, how are you doing nowadays? He said, you know, at that time, I was cribbing about making chapati. Now I've got such a wonderful wife that I have to make chapati every day at home. So it is best to stick to sometimes certain instructions that we are given by Guru Maharaj or any senior Vaishnava might not be very palatable, might not be very um, what's the right word? Feel very comfortable, convenient. But if we just understand those instructions to be coming from a higher authority and understand them to be indirectly Krishna's desire. I know it's challenging. I mean, easier said than done. If somebody puts me for kitchen duty today, even I'd be a bit upset because that's not my psychophysical nature. But if we can just stick to it long enough while cultivating the desire to serve more, because Krishna is situated in the heart, so he will definitely manifest it. I hope that answers your question, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji. Do you play cricket, Prabhuji? No? Have you ever played cricket? No? Football? Okay. Have there been days when you played football all by yourself? Have there been days when you didn't feel like playing football? But like this is just my experience because I used to play quite a lot of football. And for people who play football, they know that you can either play with like a group of people or you can do like a couple of practice things by yourself. I always felt like sometimes I felt that okay, I'm not feeling enthusiastic, don't feel like doing it. But as soon as I would step out of my home and see some kids playing in the park, I'd be like, that looks nice. Might as well just go and join them. Enthusiasm does not arise in the initial stages of devotional service. It's because we are still in the process of cleansing. But what cuts through it is consistent association. Like um, I'm coming to the temple to have darshan and serve. That's one of the biggest reasons why I'm still connected. Otherwise, I'm living pretty far away from the city. So without any association, if someone thinks that okay, I can just stay home, be enthusiastic, and do my devotional service, it's not going to work out. And in 99% of the cases, when we witness anybody's fall down, it starts with lack of enthusiasm, but the deeper reason is lack of association. So there's obviously moments when you won't feel enthusiastic, and this is how we need to understand how to establish a relationship with our mind in a way that we need not pamper it too much, but we should know how to pamper it too. If we only behave with our mind in a rigid manner, then there will come a day when it won't help us do devotional service at all. So it's pretty much like a child, like you can't give the child everything it wants, but at the same time you have to pamper the child sometimes. Like when I'm not feeling enthusiastic about devotional service, like I don't feel like chanting or so if I'm really not feeling up to it, then I'll probably keep my beads aside, go and cook some prasadam, something that like you like, right? Offer it to Radha Gopinath, so that still refreshes the mood, and then have it, and then after having it, we can continue with our devotional service. That's one way of doing it. But the best way of doing it is to be in consistent association. Even like I'm not making this statement as any form of instructional thing. This is just something I've observed and heard from other devotees. Even if somebody does not chant, even if somebody does not read, but if they simply stay in connection with devotees, if they simply stay in association of devotees, they're still far better off than someone who's in complete seclusion, reading and chanting intermittently. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So one cutthroat solution. Okay. So there's actually two ways to look at it, Prabhuji. Obviously, I'm no authority. I'm also struggling with these problems, but this is just based on what the acharyas have said. If we are feeling envious towards someone, let's say I feel envious towards Ayush Prabhu, giving such good classes. He even got praised recently for a class he gave. Some devotee from Melbourne actually wrote a big paragraph. Now I have two options. Either I can feel, oh man, this Ayush guy, not even initiated, giving classes. And who's this guy from Melbourne coming and praising him? What was so good about his class, anyways? That's one way, the worst way. The other way is, wow, Ayush Prabhu, he recently joined the movement and making such steep progress. Maybe I should associate more with him. I can learn more. I can probably try to see what his schedule is like. And I can also grow. See, because ultimately we become envious because we see an insecurity that, okay, I'm not able to grow. This person is growing. But why does the thought of seeking that person's help to grow not come in our mind? Why do we see like the person whom we are envious of always as an opponent, right? So the one way to do it is like this is what Srila Prabhupada also recommended, that if you feel spirit like envy towards any devotee that okay, he's making such steep progress, he got initiated, he's chanting so and so rounds, he gives class also, he got invited for Kirtan Fest, they didn't even send me a message. So it's all the best way is to go to that person and ask that person that Prabhuji, please share with me what is it that you're doing that's making you progress so steeply in spiritual life. And trust me when I say this, unless the person is like uh, I don't know, not Ajamil, well, Hiranyakashipu or someone, in 8 out of 10 cases, the person will take it as a positive remark and they will try to help you out. And it will slowly help you get rid of that deep, envious knot that you have in your heart. That's the only way. And that's the hard way. The problem is that it is the only way and it's hard. It's very difficult to praise someone you're envious of. Like uh, Amog Leela Prabhu from ISKCON Dwarka, he was describing how Gopal Krishna Maharaj would try to resolve issues between devotees who were envious or who had like grudges. So he would call both the devotees and say, okay, you tell me 3 good qualities of him, and you tell me 3 good qualities of him. Now, for someone that you're envious of, to name even one quality is very difficult. And they'd be like, yeah, good devotee. Yeah, he's makes good prasadam. But if we consistently do it, then there will come a time when we won't feel envious, rather we will feel happy that wow, this person is making such a nice like I really feel happy for Ayush Prabhu. Like the first time I met Ayush Prabhu, he was still like like me, as in not shaven head, and uh, I really don't know how to describe that situation, but he was still like not a monk, but he made such a good progress, right? And I genuinely feel happy because sometimes somebody's progress might not be directly beneficial to us, but it's beneficial to a greater uh, purpose. If one person joins the movement full time, that person is doing a very big welfare for the society. So this is another perspective to look at situations and try to counteract envy. Otherwise, Prabhuji, one cutthroat solution: Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. Consistently coming to Bhagavatam classes, associating with devotees, you slowly get rid of that feeling of envy. I hope that answers your question, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's there in front of me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's actually Prabhu. So there's like mainstream literature that we read, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But for the Brajvasis, there is another tributary called Vraj Sahitya, or the literature of Vraj. Now, some of these stories, they are authentic. They're not hypothetical, but they are not in the mainstream literatures. So even I'm not exactly sure of what the source is. I know it is authentic, but it is somewhere from the Vraj literature. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.